Do you find yourself making excuses to avoid having guests in your home, feeling guilty about preferring your private space undisturbed, and wondering if something is wrong with you? In the next 15 minutes, you'll discover the 7 legitimate psychological and physical reasons why most seniors over 70 naturally prefer fewer home visitors, and the practical strategies for managing social expectations without guilt or damaged relationships. There's one biological change happening in your brain after 70 that makes home hosting genuinely exhausting in ways it never was before. But once you understand it, you'll stop feeling guilty about your perfectly normal preferences. Caroline, a 76-year-old from Sacramento, felt increasingly anxious every time relatives announced they were stopping by her home. She'd spend 2 days cleaning beforehand, feel exhausted for 3 days after they left, and couldn't understand why hosting felt like such a burden when she used to enjoy entertaining. Her daughter finally helped her understand that her changing preferences weren't rudeness or antisocial behavior. They were normal responses to real physiological and psychological changes that happen naturally as we age. Reason 1. Social energy depletion takes longer to recover. From after 70, your brain requires significantly more recovery time after social interactions, making home visits genuinely exhausting in ways they never were in your younger years. Research from the University of California, San Francisco shows that older adults experience what scientists call social fatigue more intensely due to increased cognitive load during conversations and reduced mental energy reserves compared to younger people. Your brain has to work harder to process conversations, remember names and context, maintain attention, and manage the social dynamics of hosting. This neurological effort depletes your mental resources much faster than it did decades ago, and replenishing those resources takes 2 to 3 times longer than it used to. What once energized you now drains you, and that's not a character flaw, it's brain biology. Warren, a 73-year-old from Nashville, noticed he needed a full day of quiet solitude after a 3-hour visit from his grandchildren, whereas the same interaction would have energized him at age 55. He felt guilty about this until his doctor explained his brain was working much harder during social interactions than it used to. Forcing yourself to host when you're mentally depleted leads to genuine irritability during the visit, exhaustion that affects your health for days afterward, and growing resentment toward people you actually love. The guilt from feeling irritable makes everything worse because now you're depleted and feeling bad about yourself. This cycle damages both your well-being and your relationships far more than simply limiting visits would. You need to set clear limits on visit duration and frequency starting immediately. Limit all home visits to 2 hours maximum, regardless of who's visiting, because that's about how long your social energy lasts before depletion sets in. Schedule visits with at least 2 full days between them, so your brain has adequate recovery time before the next social demand. Give yourself full permission to say, "I'm not up for hosting today," without elaborate excuses or apologies when you need solitude. You don't owe anyone an explanation beyond, "Today doesn't work for me." Learn to recognize early signs of social fatigue, like difficulty focusing, irritability, or physical tension, and end visits when you notice these signals rather than pushing through until you're completely depleted. Honor your energy limits starting now, because pushing through mental exhaustion damages both your health through stress and your relationships through forced interactions where you can't be your best self. Protect your recovery time as seriously as you'd protect sleep or nutrition. Reason 2. Physical preparation has become genuinely exhausting. Have you noticed that the cleaning, cooking, and physical preparation for hosting guests now leaves you completely drained before visitors even arrive? The Mayo Clinic reports that adults over 70 experience approximately a 40% reduction in sustained physical stamina compared to age 50, making tasks like extensive cleaning, cooking multiple dishes, and prolonged standing significantly more taxing on your body. Your muscles fatigue faster, your cardiovascular system can't sustain effort as long, and recovery from physical exertion takes substantially longer. The preparation that took you a few hours at age 50 now takes days and leaves you genuinely exhausted. You're not being lazy or weak. Your body's physical capacity has fundamentally changed. Sylvia, a 78-year-old from Portland, spent an entire day preparing her home for her book club meeting and was too exhausted to actually enjoy the gathering when it finally happened. She fell asleep in her chair within an hour after everyone left. Exhausting yourself preparing for guests creates negative associations with hosting that make you dread all social contact, increases your fall risk from rushing while physically tired, prevents you from actually enjoying the social interaction you work so hard to create, and can trigger health problems from overexertion. Many seniors injure themselves cleaning or cooking before guests arrive because fatigue impairs balance and coordination. The irony is, you work yourself into exhaustion trying to be a good host, then can't be present and engaged when guests actually arrive. You must dramatically simplify hosting or move gatherings to outside venues starting today. Meet friends at restaurants, cafes, or community centers instead of hosting at home whenever possible, completely eliminating preparation burden. When you do host at home, serve only simple refreshments requiring minimal preparation like store-bought cookies, crackers and cheese, or just coffee and tea. Nothing that requires cooking. Hire help for deep cleaning before visits if you must host at home, or simply accept that your home doesn't need to be perfect. Tell guests honestly that you're keeping things simple due to energy limitations, and real friends will understand and appreciate seeing you more than they care about elaborate hosting. Stop martyring yourself through exhausting preparation immediately because simplified hosting or outside venues preserve both your physical energy and your ability to actually enjoy social connection. Your presence matters far more than elaborate food or a spotless house. Reason 3. Sensory sensitivities intensify with age. After 70, your nervous system becomes more sensitive to noise, chaos, movement, and stimulation, making the disruption of guests in your controlled environment genuinely uncomfortable and even physically distressing. Harvard Medical School neurologists confirm that aging brains become more sensitive to sensory input and less able to filter background noise and visual chaos, making busy social environments neurologically overwhelming for many seniors. Your brain's ability to tune out irrelevant stimuli and focus on what matters declines significantly. So when multiple people are talking, moving around your space, and creating noise, your nervous system goes into overdrive, trying to process everything. This isn't psychological weakness. It's a measurable change in how your brain processes environmental input. Leonard, a 74-year-old from Phoenix, realized the loud conversations and constant movement of visitors in his home triggered genuine stress responses, including rapid heartbeat, tension headaches, and a feeling of being overwhelmed that never bothered him before. His calm, quiet home suddenly felt chaotic and stressful with guests present. Ignoring sensory overload and forcing yourself to endure it leads to anxiety attacks, physical stress symptoms like elevated blood pressure and muscle tension, sleep disruption that night from overstimulation, and eventually complete avoidance of all social contact rather than just limiting home hosting. Your body interprets sensory overload as a threat and responds with stress hormones that damage your health over time. Pretending you're fine when you're overwhelmed doesn't make the biological response go away. You need to control the sensory environment of social interactions starting immediately. Choose quiet venues like libraries or quiet restaurants for socializing instead of hosting at home where you can't control noise levels. Limit group sizes to 2 or 3 people maximum when you do host at home, because even small increases in group size dramatically increase sensory complexity. Schedule visits during your highest energy times when you're best able to handle stimulation, typically morning or early afternoon for most seniors. Keep all visits short, regardless of how well they're going, because sensory tolerance decreases over time, even during pleasant interactions. Respect your nervous system's changing needs immediately, because sensory overwhelm isn't weakness, rudeness, or antisocial behavior. It's biology that you can't control through willpower. Protecting yourself from overload preserves your capacity for social connection in manageable doses. Reason 4. Your need for routine and predictability has increased. Do unexpected visitors or disruptions to your carefully established daily schedule now trigger anxiety and irritation in ways they didn't when you were younger? Research from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine shows that older adults rely more heavily on predictable daily routines for cognitive function, emotional regulation, and physical health management. And disruptions to established patterns cause measurable increases in stress. Hormones like cortisol. Your brain depends on routine to conserve mental energy for essential tasks. Your body depends on routine for medication timing and meal schedules. And your emotional well-being depends on the security of knowing what to expect. When guests disrupt these routines, especially without warning, it creates genuine distress that younger people often don't understand because they don't yet depend on routine the same way. Gladys, a 77-year-old from Tampa, found herself feeling genuinely upset and anxious when her daughter dropped by unannounced, interrupting her carefully timed medication schedule and the lunch routine her digestion depended on. What her daughter saw as a friendly surprise felt like an unwelcome disruption to systems keeping Gladys healthy. Allowing spontaneous visits and routine disruptions causes missed medications or meals that affect your health, creates anxiety that persists long after the visit ends, makes you dread all social contact because you can't predict when it will disrupt your day, and can trigger confusion or disorientation when established patterns are broken. Many seniors depend on routine for cognitive clarity, and breaking that routine can actually impair thinking and memory for hours afterward. You must establish and enforce clear boundaries about visit scheduling starting today. Require advance notice of at least 24 to 48 hours for all visits without exception, giving you time to prepare mentally and adjust your schedule if needed. Communicate clearly to family and friends that dropping by unannounced is no longer welcome or acceptable, and don't answer the door if someone shows up without notice. Protect your daily routines for meals, medications, exercise, and rest without apologizing or feeling guilty about it. Explain once that your health depends on routine consistency, and then stop justifying yourself. You don't need anyone's permission to protect your well-being. Set visit boundaries today because your daily routine directly supports your physical health, cognitive function, and emotional stability. Protecting it isn't selfishness, it's essential self-care. Routine is medicine for aging bodies and brains. Reason 5, anxiety about home. Appearance and judgment increases. Many seniors develop heightened anxiety about others judging their housekeeping standards, outdated decor, visible signs of aging in their homes, or their inability to maintain things the way they used to. The American Psychological Association reports that older adults commonly experience increased self-consciousness about home appearance due to genuine difficulty maintaining homes to previous standards and fear of being judged as incapable, declining, or giving up. You notice things that aren't perfect, the carpet that needs replacing, the paint that needs touching up, the clutter you can't manage anymore, and you worry guests will judge you harshly. This fear often has nothing to do with how guests actually think, and everything to do with your own internal standards that no longer match your physical capabilities. Bernard, a 75-year-old from Cleveland, avoided inviting friends over for months because he worried they'd judge his inability to maintain his yard properly and notice his kitchen hadn't been updated since 1985. In reality, his friends just wanted to see him and didn't care about his yard or kitchen. Avoiding all home hosting due to appearance anxiety increases isolation and loneliness, leads to depression from lost social connections, and causes you to miss valuable time with people who care about you far more than they care about your housekeeping. The tragic irony is, you sacrifice real relationships to protect yourself from imaginary judgment. Most people aren't nearly as judgmental as you fear, and those who are that judgmental aren't worth having in your life anyway. You need to release perfectionism and accept your home's current reality starting now. Understand that your home doesn't need to be perfect for you to deserve visitors and connection. You are not your housekeeping standards. Focus your limited energy on relationships and connection rather than on impressive appearances that drain you. Meet elsewhere if home anxiety is genuinely overwhelming and can't be resolved, choosing your mental health over forcing yourself into distressing situations. Tell yourself repeatedly that real friends care about seeing you and spending time together, not about judging your carpet or your outdated furniture. Release perfectionism now, because real friends care about connection with you, not about impressing them with your housekeeping or decor. You deserve relationships regardless of your home's appearance. Reason 6, kitchen tasks and meal preparation have become difficult. Do you avoid hosting because preparing food, managing kitchen timing and serving meals has become genuinely challenging and anxiety-producing rather than enjoyable? Studies from the National Institute on Aging show that complex meal preparation requires executive function skills, including planning, timing, multitasking, and sequential processing, that decline with normal aging, making the coordination of hosting meals increasingly stressful for many seniors. What you once did effortlessly now requires intense concentration. The timing you used to manage automatically now feels impossibly complex, and the physical demands of standing, stirring, and carrying feel exhausting. This isn't incompetence, it's neurological and physical changes that affect nearly everyone eventually. Esther, a 79-year-old from Seattle, used to love hosting dinner parties, but now finds managing multiple dishes, coordinating timing, and maintaining conversation simultaneously overwhelming and genuinely anxiety-inducing. She burned a dish last time while distracted by guests and felt humiliated. Forcing yourself to host meals when kitchen tasks are difficult leads to kitchen accidents, including burns and cuts from distraction. Genuine emotional distress from feeling incompetent at tasks you once mastered. Negative experiences that make you avoid all social hosting, and damaged relationships when meals don't turn out well and you feel embarrassed. The stress of complicated meal preparation overwhelms any enjoyment you might get from the social interaction itself. You must simplify hosting expectations dramatically starting today. Serve only beverages and store-bought snacks when you do host at home, completely eliminating cooking requirements, coffee, tea, cookies from the store, crackers and cheese that require zero preparation. Suggest restaurant meetups instead of home meals whenever possible, letting restaurants handle all food preparation and cleanup. Accept help from guests who offer to bring food rather than insisting on doing everything yourself. Or tell guests honestly that you're not serving a meal. There is no law requiring you to cook elaborate meals for visitors, and anyone who expects that isn't worth the stress. Simplify hosting expectations immediately, because elaborate meal preparation is optional, not mandatory, and your energy is far too valuable to waste on complicated cooking when simple alternatives exist. Focus on connection, not performance. Reason 7. You value privacy and solitude more than ever. After decades of accommodating others' needs, raising children, managing careers, and putting yourself last, many seniors discover they genuinely prefer solitude and privacy in their own homes. And that's completely normal and healthy psychological development. Research published by the Gerontological Society of America confirms that increased preference for solitude in later life is normal psychological maturation, not depression or antisocial behavior, reflecting a healthy shift toward selective social investment in relationships that truly matter. You've earned the right to be selective about your time, energy, and space. You've spent decades accommodating others, and now you're finally free to prioritize your own comfort and preferences. This is wisdom and self-knowledge, not selfishness or decline. Agnes, an 81-year-old from Boston, realized she felt most peaceful and content alone in her home, with her routines, her books, and her quiet space. And socializing felt like work, rather than pleasure, regardless of who was visiting. She finally gave herself permission to prefer solitude. Forcing yourself into unwanted social hosting creates resentment toward people you might actually enjoy in different circumstances or smaller doses, leads to exhaustion that affects your health, makes you feel guilty about your authentic preferences, and prevents you from honoring the life wisdom you've earned through 8 decades of living. You know yourself better now than you ever have. And ignoring that self-knowledge to please others is a form of self-betrayal. You need to accept your preferences without guilt starting immediately, and restructure your social life accordingly. Give yourself full permission to prefer solitude and privacy in your own home without needing to justify or explain these preferences to anyone. Maintain valued relationships through phone calls, video chats, and outside meetups that don't invade your private sanctuary. Tell family and friends honestly that you prefer socializing outside your home now, and enforce this boundary consistently. Recognize that preferring solitude doesn't mean you don't love people. It means you love yourself enough to honor your authentic needs. Honor your authentic preferences starting today, because preferring solitude and privacy after a lifetime of accommodating others is wisdom and healthy self-care, not withdrawal or decline. Your home is your sanctuary, and protecting it is your right. You've discovered the 7 legitimate reasons why most seniors naturally prefer fewer home visitors. Social energy depletion requires longer recovery. Physical preparation is genuinely exhausting. Sensory sensitivities have intensified. Routine needs have increased significantly. Home appearance anxiety has grown. Kitchen tasks have become challenging, and you simply value privacy more than ever before. These aren't character flaws, antisocial tendencies, or signs of decline. They're normal responses to real physiological and psychological changes that affect nearly everyone as they age. You have every right to protect your energy, your space, and your peace of mind without guilt, and you can maintain meaningful relationships through phone calls, video chats, and outside gatherings, while still preserving your home as your private sanctuary, where you feel most comfortable and secure. If this video validated feelings you thought were wrong or selfish, hit that like button so other seniors discover they're not alone in these completely normal preferences. Comment below sharing whether you relate to these reasons, or how you've managed to balance social connections with your need for privacy and solitude. Your perspective and experience help others feel less guilty about their own changing preferences. Subscribe for more honest conversations about the psychological and physical realities of aging that nobody else discusses openly, and share this with any senior who's been feeling guilty about preferring fewer visitors or avoiding home hosting. They desperately need to hear this validating message today.